Hello, my name's Julie Williams. I'm a registered migration agent with Migration Downunder, and I'm here to talk to you all about the Subclass 186, the Employer Nomination Scheme, which is a permanent residence visa. The 186 is reliant on you having an employer to sponsor you, and that's something we here at Migration Downunder can't help you with in finding an employer. And generally speaking, the majority of people are already working with that employer to be eligible for the Subclass 186. It may be that you're currently holding a 482 visa, it may be that you're on another type of visa here in Australia, or you may be even overseas to be eligible to apply for permanent residency through the Employer Nomination Scheme. There's two different pathways to obtain permanent residency for the Subclass 186. It's the temporary transition stream and the direct entry. So let's have a look at the temporary transition stream to start with. And that is where you are already the holder of a 482 visa and are employed with that particular sponsor and employer that's considering sponsoring you for the permanent residency through the 186. For eligibility, you have to have worked whilst holding a 482 visa for a minimum of 2 years to be eligible to apply through the temporary transition stream. Sometimes people may have started working with their employer prior to holding the 482 visa, and unfortunately the visa you held prior to the 482 doesn't count towards those 2 years. So you do need a minimum 2 years full-time paid employment as the holder of a 482 visa. As of November 2023, that opened up the pathway for people that had occupations on the short-term list as well as the medium long-term list. And with the short-term list, you only get a visa granted for 2 years. So sometimes that can pose a problem as to whether you meet the 2-year requirement because the visa was only valid for 2 years. But if you were working on day one of the grant of that 482 visa, then you can apply very close to the expiry to still be eligible for the 186 temporary transition stream. With the 186, you still have to meet the health and character requirement, also English language at time of application. There's no exemption other than if you are a passport holder from the UK, US or Canada or Ireland. Anybody else has to do a English language test. Sometimes the tests that you had for the 482 might still be valid. Generally speaking, they're valid for 3 years, but the requirement for English language for the 186 is slightly higher than the 482, so you need to be mindful of that. You can include your spouse and children in on that 186 visa for the temporary transition stream. So that's for those people that were holding a 482 visa, working with the same employer for a minimum of 2 years. Now, this direct entry for those that haven't held a visa or a 482 visa for 2 years and want to apply for permanent residency prior to the 2 years, the only people that can do that are those that are in occupations on the medium long-term list. You can't do the direct entry if you're in an occupation on the short-term list, unfortunately. So the only way on the short-term list is if you work out those 2 years with the same employer. But for direct entry for people with occupations on medium long-term list, the thing you need to do is have your skills assessed. Generally speaking, that is the requirement of the Skills Assessing Authority does require a tertiary qualification as well as the relevant work experience. So depending on your occupation will depend on the Skills Assessing Authority, whether that's the Australian Computer Society, Engineers Australia, VetAssess. It's not an actual test. All it is assessing your qualifications as being equivalent to an Australian qualification. So there's no written test, there's no practical test unless actually you're in trade It is just about supplying all the relevant documentation for that skills assessment. So as long as you've got a valid skills assessment for the occupation that you're nominating under, and you've got a minimum of 3 years post-qualification experience, now that can be in Australia or overseas, or maybe it's not even in Australia and you're already overseas. So that direct entry, once you've got the 3 years and the skills assessment, you can apply as long as the employer has got a genuine ongoing position for you that is full-time and agreeing to sponsor you for permanent residency. So that's the most popular way of gaining permanent residency these days, especially for those that are skilled migrants working here in Australia. But if you'd like to know a little bit more about the 186 Employer Nomination Scheme, don't hesitate in reaching out to us via our website, email or phone.